whoever wants to click on this or hopefully watch this video at a later date. But usually on rainy days like this, I'm totally out of commission. I'm such a sunny person. I love the bright weather, and I was planning on doing all this gardening, but that's not happening. So, but I have a different kind of go to plan B. I wanted to share some things that are on my heart because actually the weather gives me, brings that subdued, sober-minded kind of mentality to the forefront. These are serious times. This is a serious day. It's raining on everybody's parade on so many levels. So what am I trying to say? I want to just come back on and speak some of the spiritual insights that I have as I look at the world and things going on. Because I think, most people realize that I'm really trying to reach people that I know and that know me. And, actually, someone can't believe it's here. And I never thought it would look like this or start like this. Who thought? But, here we are. But I do want to say I have sort of been on a journey. I have been extensively reading and educating myself and becoming, I guess you could just say it's spiritually immersed in the writings of the Judeo-Christian household. So I just did and I read what's called the broader canon. And I did a whole YouTube on it. And people should check it out and understand that, the 66 books that is in the wasn't even in the King James original. They were actually had all the Deuterocanonicals in it. That we really do need today to find those in the church that are ready to get out of the boat and to go to the next level, because the times and the seasons definitely are calling for a stronger anointing, more knowledge, more power, more wisdom, more understanding, more love, right? More provision in every category. So today is the second Passover. One of the things I just want to remind people of, anyone who wants to listen, came out over Passover and started to try to talk to what I call my Ephraimite friends, my evangelical friends, because I have learned that we are not biblically, the reason you can't find Christian, the name in the Bible, is because it's not there. It's a different kind of understanding. We are Adonai's people, but we are known as biblically Ephraim, the house of Ephraim, the house of Joseph, the northern kingdom, Samaria, the lost tribes of Israel, the mixed multitude, or the fullness of the Gentiles. Those are really all of the words that surround our fate and who we are, so to speak, this huge population of quote unquote Christians. And put in there righteous Noahites, people who really believe in the truth and in goodness and in mercy, and who really kind of walk the walk much more than, just talk the talk. So there's multitudes. There's prophesied to be a harvest of and multitudes of this seed, so to speak, this seed in the earth. And it's an absolute fact. I mean, we have more people alive today than at any other time. And so if you have this understanding of like I said, the two houses and Ephraim, aka Christianity, and how that revelation will totally revolutionize and unlock your whole Bible and put everything back into its proper context. And it's really important today because the Bible has always told us that we are in this huge quote unquote war. Now people logically, really, we use that word war on many levels. I mean, I played a game, War, with my kids, right? That card game, and you slap down, it's fun. But you're not the worst case scenario for war is bloodshed. That's not, when I'm talking about to marshal ourselves for war, this whole concept, there's other ways to use it. And polemics, ideas, is a huge battleground. It's a huge war. That's why today the culture war, the way people talk, we're at a very heightened level of discourse, very unhealthy level of discourse in this country, that if it continues to go unchecked, I mean, seriously, because this is history and this is biblical, it will lead to bloodshed. Because hatred, this is what Yeshua said, if you hate your brother, the root of that is a murderous spirit. It goes all the way back to Cain and Abel. Cain hated his brother. He got jealous of him. He ended up murdering his brother. So part of us is we can't be stupid. This is why the Bible tells you need to check your anger, check your wrath, check your vengeance, check your level, check your temperature, all the words of your mouth, all these things. Because nothing happens in a vacuum. And acceleration is a fact of all of nature. All right. I mean, you just drive your car, accelerate that pedal a little bit, and what happens? All right. And sometimes this is how the allegory works. I'll tell you with sexual passion. You need to check yourself, because at some point these things become runaway freight trains. You can't stop it. And this is the history of our sad world, where we get to the level with each other that we spill blood. Now, this is a tactic that is used by, oh gosh, there's a part of me is I'm trying to keep this very simple, because I study so much on deeper levels and a lot of esoteric understanding. There's a lot of deep levels. There's many levels to use these words. So I'm just trying to say, I am very concerned about the level of polemics in this country, where we cannot even dialogue with each other about opening up the country in a way that does not denegate the individual giving an opposing opinion, or does not throw out that opinion out of the equation of finding the righteous solution. And so one of the things, as I was saying, like with Passover, bringing it back to my original thing, when nations, people, a house, yourself gets to the level where you cannot really deal with the issue in a civil way anymore, that's a time to back off, right? I mean, that's just logical. But with Pharaoh, with the whole story of the Passover and bringing it back up, there was a point in time where the father said, okay, look at, I'm doing this thing. I'm going to take my people out of Egypt, this country where they're in bondage, they're slaves against their will. They don't want to be slaves down there. I mean, who wants to be a slave, right? And the father says, I'm going to redeem them. I'm going to take them out. He spoke to Pharaoh, who was the head of the nation, so to speak, and Pharaoh said, no, right? Let them go. Okay. So if I can say on a deeper level, that is an archetype of what's going on in the heavenly realms. I'm talking mature Christians. If you read Paul, you understand a war isn't really against flesh and blood. So that story isn't really told in its totality just between Pharaoh and Moses. It's between the Most High God of Israel and one of his principalities called Pharaoh, who was not going to let God's people go. All right. So God basically said, all right, I'm going to have to deal with this guy on another level. I mean, to think of this, and I'm going to have to use some of my power, my force, the things that to get his attention and to get him to let you go. And this is where Moshe comes in, and he equipped the people, and he told the people, all right, it's going to get escalated a little bit here, but the Father has promised he will protect us, because he said he's going to take us out, so he's not going to leave us. But you need to, kind of follow through on some things. And one of them was the institution of the Passover, in this concept of a blood covering, all right, that the Father was going to send out the angel of death, all right? It's in your text, people. This is how it works. The Father has like a whole group of policemen, army, people who will go and do his bidding, whether it's a nation, chastisements, whether it's an individual. It's a very established concept. So we shouldn't be surprised at some of the players in this. But the angel of death was sent out to kill the firstborn of everyone in Egypt, to get the attention of Pharaoh. All right. Now there's a lot of meat kind of packed into that, but he told his people, if you will cover your doorpost with a visible sign, the blood of a lamb. There's a whole ritual, whole story. It's extremely deep and insightful on many levels. But when the angel of death goes over, he will pass over. He's been commanded by me that when you see that, you can't touch that household, and you can't touch the people in that household. All right. And that is how the Father did a plague, and he got the desired results. And yet the people who listened to the lead to Moshe were protected. Now, these are things that happen over and over again. And we're in a place today where the Father is trying to get people's attention to say, look, these aren't just little stories. These aren't just little rituals, just, oh my gosh, I got to do the festival again this year. These are packed and loaded with spiritual warfare concepts and understandings and archetypes of what's going on so many levels. But I will tell you one thing was so interesting. Okay, so people that know me, I'm really apt on studying Hebrew and the letters. And this is, oh my gosh, I won't go into that tangent. But this is the bet. This is the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It starts with Aleph, Bet. We get the word alphabet from these alphabet, all right? And down to the top, alphabet. Okay. Anyways, if you were to see, this is a pictograph. And what it means is it has the shape of it, believe it or not, it contains tremendous amount of information. So I'm going to show you how the bet relates to the Passover. Because a bet, bottom line, means a house. It's a container, it's a vessel, it's a tabernacle, it's the enclosure. It's basically what's packed into the meaning of this word. But for all intents and purposes, as a bet is bait, and it means house. But if you turn it on its side like this, wait a minute, do it this way. When it talks about Moshe told the people, said exactly what to do with the blood, he said, put it on the two. And you have to look literally, this is so incredible. The archetypes with these people, there's nothing random in our text. He said, put the blood on the two doorposts, which translates to the two sides, and on the lintel, on the doorpost above. So actually, he was having the people mark a bet, a house, that this house was a house of God. These people were under his jurisdiction, and that angel could not touch them. I mean, you can't make that up, right? I'm just saying, this other is made up of three sections, a middle, which they call this the middle, the left side, the right side, and of course you would have the top, the middle, referring to the middle pillar. This is all very biblical, the structure of this. But my point being that Passover, when you do it and when you obey it, when you remember it, the whole point of that is to spiritually bring you back into a zone and an understanding that sometimes our fights rise up to the level of principalities and powers. Actually, they're always at that level. But basically, sometimes we have to let the Father fight the battle, and we have to just get in the house and stay there. Now, on one level, the fact that we're all in lockdown, I've said a lot of this, kind of in our houses during the season, he hasn't given us just one night, because that's the Passover. It was really just one night. And then in the morning, they left out they left Egypt. Okay, so we're not necessarily probably going to leave tomorrow, but this veil of tears, so to speak. But the archetypal understanding, the allegory, is the same. That for us, and then it goes on to say, and it says this, and I'll just, sometimes, and I've done this for years, we gloss over so much of what's in the text. And it says that first of all, that it is a ordinance for all generations. See, this is why I'm telling Christians, aka Christians, we can't not pay attention anymore to the feast, our feasts. All right, we've been grafted back in by the grace of Elohim, by the blood of Yeshua, into the original covenant that we made at Sinai, and us and all of our descendants and our multiplied seed that is out there in all of the earth. All right, so this ordinance is for all generations. So that comes all the way down to us, and he says that three times in the chapter. All right, he says it in Exodus 12. And then he states it again in Exodus 13 and 14, and always that these are for you and for all of your generations, all of your offspring, for all generations. So we need to come back to that. All right. Now the other thing about it is, it says that no plague will come near you. See, this is why I want to move into some really serious and deep stuff, because I mean, I guess I just have to come out and say it. And how serious this is and what we're up against, and that there's two kinds of people out there, really and truly. It's coming down to this, in a sense. There's those who have taken the red pill and those who have taken the blue pill. I mean, seriously, if to get your eyes wide open to be able to see spiritually what's going on, unfortunately, the evangelical church has lost many truths, which now to retell it is they become inconvenient truths, but I can't help that. So if you read your text carefully, we have always had periods in history. Israel always had periods in their history, and it's just been periods where evil tries to take over. I mean, just because there is real evil, and these are real, and I don't want to get you, there are real demons, principalities, powers, energies, wickedness, cabals out there that want to take the people of God, anyone else associated with them, and down. That's just history, all right? Biblical history in particular. But today, what really, it kind of really bothers me how much the church is unprepared for this. It really caught us also by surprise that now here we are on lockdown, and it's like people are beginning to wake up, and people are beginning to realize, wait a minute, there's something really, really wrong with this picture. And there is something really wrong with it. But what we have lost biblically is there is a cabal. See, there has always been, and I'll just have to just come out and say it, there has always been groups of people on the planet, I don't know what you call Luciferians. The Bible just call them the wicked. You know, we all sin and fall short of the glory. But there is a category of people who've always been dogged, who are called the wicked biblically. And these are people who are 100% outside of the province of God. They don't obey him. They don't listen to him. They fight against him and against his people overtly, covertly at times. All right. But these people, Yeshua said, you will know them by their fruit. And he warned, you know, and that's why he called it, you brood of evildoers. We've got to learn to not be ashamed of examining people's fruit and understanding what the implication could be. Because he says that, so everybody today who is studying, if you've gone down this path, understanding that the deep state and the stake of the war against our nation to take our free constitutional nation down, there is a concerted effort to reduce America, any influence to really take us out as a player because of what our history and what we potentially represent. This is really, really true. And they have been at it for a long time. Matter of fact, I mean, it goes all the way back to, you know, to the garden, and then it goes all the way back to Nimrod, it goes all the way back to Nebuchadnezzar, it goes all the back, you know, Alexander the Great, and then you get modern Hitlers. I mean, this is a story that just goes on and on. It gets told, and it's trying to rear again its extremely ugly head in these last days. Very much so. We would call it the beast kingdom. But these, like, 3%ers, I mean, there's so many words you could give to it, but these people have a certain modus operandi that gives them away. And in Revelation, just Revelation 12:15, it says that, you know, outside are dogs. They're sorcerers. These are people, they're sorcerers. They're sexually immoral. They're murderers. They're idolaters. And they love and practice falsehood. It would go on and on to say that you could say, now, see, my problem here again, people, this is so hard to do, because if you go and look at some of the translations, because we've lost the Hebrew understanding of these words, Keely, some of the translations really skewer the implication. But the point is, cowardly, unbelieving, abominable, they're the murderers, sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolatries, liars. These are categories of behavior amongst people groups that you really got to watch out for. And as people are unpacking what the lifestyles and what is really going on in the hidden lifestyles of much of the leadership of this country and the leadership of the world, it's called the secret power of lawlessness. It's astounding. I mean, you talk about the children, the pedophiles, you talk about spirit cooking. I mean, there are so many things that the monarch, I mean, these are just code words for people who know some of the stuff that is documented to a large extent. There is an extreme amount of evidence and documentation biblically, extra biblically, in the annals of world history, and it's all over the internet. Okay, so we can't play stupid, and this is our problem, that, it would never happen to us on our watch. That's where we have been lulled to sleep. It's very much happening to us and very much happening on our watch. That's the problem. So, but the good news is that this will be the last go around, number one. Number two, these people will be totally exposed if they do not repent. This is what, now all of us mess up. Hey, listen, in our culture today with the sexual immorality, with adults, I mean, yes, we all mess up. And that's not what I'm talking about. You got the bloody issue. There's many ways to cleanse, to be cleansed and renewed and made whole. But what we have to understand is, and that's why this nation was founded on litmus tests for leadership that would give you the ability to know that their character was good going into the job. I can't stress it, and I know it's politically incorrect to say this. I mean, but what do I care? I mean, people, we have to distinguish between those who practice as a lifestyle, whether in magic arts, and please, trust me, if I can get, talking about what a sorcery is and stuff in this, but just think of the way this quote-unquote cabal has tried to change our minds and our attitudes about righteous living to the point where, it's very hard today to live righteously because everything around us is 100% plotted and planned and manipulated to put us in a state of, at worst, confusion, and at best, of actually acting out and doing sinful things today. This is part of the problem. It's become so, evil has gotten so a hold of our media, of our, of our entertainment, and our schools, in the medical, and I want to go on so many levels. It's very hard. But, hey, what are you going? Your choice is you lay down and or you fight. We have to fight. Pick up, be a good soldier, and we can endure hardness. We can, and we have to. What I'm trying to say, knowledge is power. Once people wake up and really understand this, and really have this aha moment, then we can begin to get a biblical perspective and an understanding of the level of wake it up. We need to really begin to examine a lot of this stuff that's going on. And just taking the whole COVID-19 thing today. I mean, in 5 weeks, how you could transform it, the United States of America, which was not perfect, but we had a prosperous, we had an economy, we were chugging along, things were happening, but how you could shut down an engine like this. I mean, it is pretty remarkable. And that's pretty, see, I think people, this is the lulling to sleep. Like, when has that ever happened in the history of the world? It hasn't, people. These things are, one of the things that's happening today, things are happening very fast, and things are happening on biblical proportions. All right. So when Yahweh went around and he did strike down the firstborn in Egypt, all right, now that's a fact. And when the warfare gets to that level, then we're dealing with some very biblical, some very large, world-affecting biblical events, and that's where we are. But this idea of how the mindset works for people, because again, my problem is within the church. If I'm talking to like I said, these words you have to be very careful, because if you keep them on a strictly fundamentalist level, you will miss all the nuances of meaning, and you will miss the meat of the word. You will miss the deeper understanding. So if you're just acting, and that's what the enemy's trying to do today. He's trying to get us so mad at each other, that we'll not, and that we'll go to bloodshed. And this is in the rhetoric out there, people. This is not anything that I'm making up. But we have to get above that. We have to get the mind of Christ, and we have to get above that. And hopefully we have to stay above that. But, today you can be a secularist, or you can have a biblical worldview. I mean, basically, and biblically, again, you can think like the nations do, or you can, again, think biblically. All right? And they will give you two totally different conclusions. All right? But as long as I live in America, I live under a constitution that was formulated. We all have certain inalienable, they didn't get this out of nowhere, inalienable rights endowed upon them by our Creator. That is like so biblical. So the fact that right now we have gone from being this free people, basically, to being told what to do on every level in 5 weeks, there is some major principality like right over our head. Okay, now Yeshua said that the other thing he said, he came to bring a sword. He didn't come to bring peace. He came to bring a sword. All right, now how would you define that? Okay, again, a sword, you can't immediately think that, again, if you're a literalist, you pick up a physical sword? That's why Peter, when they came to take Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, they came to get Yeshua, and Peter whips out his sword, and he cuts the guy's ear off. And Yeshua's like, no, Peter, that's not how we're fighting it now. That's not how we're winning it. All right, put it away. All right. So what is a sword in this sense? A sword cuts. Remember, it cuts. Swords are used for a lot of things. I mean, put some meat on the table and slice that thing, slice and dice that thing. I mean, a sword cuts. A sword slices. A sword puts division between two things. Once something was whole, and then put the sword to it, and then all of a sudden, you've got division. This is what Yeshua is saying. He's coming to bring division. And what kind of division? He's saying, like, you're going to have to choose you this day who you're going to serve. All right. Are you going to serve the righteous God in his Torah and live at peace with your neighbor? Or are you going to live according to a lawless dictate, a Luciferian dictate, which would tell you, basically do as thou wilt, do what you want, and if you feel like going to bloodshed, go to bloodshed. Our commandments say you don't murder, premeditated murder. Okay. So there's very stark contrast between the two. But we're told by Yeshua this sword that he wants to cut. And I'll just read you. It's very sobering. And these verses all just totally jumped out at me today. When Yeshua said, when he was speaking, he said, it will be brother will betray brother to death, and a father, his children will rise up against their parents and have them put to death. You will be hated by everyone because of my name. This is an Old Testament principle. It says in Micah, in 7, verse 7-6, it says, for a son dishonors his father. A daughter rises against her mother. A daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies are the members of his own household. Brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child. Luke 12:53 said, they will be divided. Father against son, son against father, mother against daughter. I mean, what is up with all these verses, all right? So you have to ask yourself, but in the war of polemics, all right, so we're going to take that sword, we're going to take it out of any physicality, because that's where it needs to remain. We are in the world of polemics of ideas. Everything starts in the mind, and that's a biblical principle, all right? And you have to, all right, so everything starts in the mind. All right, and you have your worldview, shapes your actions. So if you're God-fearing, obviously, then maybe you will think twice before you would cheat, steal, or do any of this stuff. If you're not, then you have what's called situational ethics, and you justify. Well, what would be in it for me? Would I get caught? I mean, these are really the ways the mind thinks. These are really and truly how our wirings work. But So what could it be? Because today with COVID, we're at one of these places where it's going to get really dicey. And it's going to get the church, if we're going to rise up and be the church, the end times church that people, want to see and envision, this glorious church that will be strong and do exploits. Yeshua said, the works that I do shall you do also, and greater works. And the promise, then we have to make a choice who we're going to serve. We're going to serve secular wisdom, worldly wisdom, or are we going to serve God's wisdom? God said, if you will apply the blood, and we're not talking again, maybe once we're talking again in the mind, in a mind picture, all right? If you are going to cover yourself with the mantle and the finished work and of a Messiah, of your Messiah, Yeshua, and I say this to a Jew because, see, what you understand is Torah is protection the same way. If you will keep Torah, you will have a level of protection and no plague will come near your door. So the outcome is going to be very different. But it's very distressing today because our constitutional rights are being totally trampled by this, and I consider it's not a pandemic, it's a plandemic. The evidence is really in. And what happened was there was this video that came out yesterday called plandemic. All right. And actually, I love the word. It's a great word, plandemic. Because if you study deeply and understand the Kabbalah, they have been at this for a long time. They have infiltrated on every level. I mean, a government, a media, of the churches, of their insidious agenda is everywhere. So now that everybody kind of sees it and realizes it, the question would be, okay, so what are we supposed to do? But if you have to, in your mind, decide, who are you going to obey? Who are you going to listen to? The church, we have to make a decision. Are we going to let them put us back into, as they open up the doors, for people to go to restaurants or to go to church, right? Because whatever happens in the world, fine. The world can manage its own affairs. I'm concerned right now. Okay, let's just say we're the people of God. Whether you're going in a synagogue or you're going in a church setting or whatever. So a friend of mine just sent today a letter that was sent out by her pastor of how it will be May 16th when they reconvene. And here they're going to church and they're going to sit every other pew. I mean, I could just tell you, every other pew, everyone must wear a mask. You have to have 5 to 6 feet separation. Communion, okay, so you can only take your mask off if you're going to do communion. There will be no hugging, no handshakes, no, of course, the collection baskets, well, they will not be passed, even they'll be available. So, I mean, it's just like in every way they have totally altered how, and then the services will go on if they have to do 5 services a day so that there will be a low number of people. Okay, now people, this is what I want to say. This is for guidelines for the church. We live in a country where I have a constitution and I have a freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, and a first freedom of speech. So part of the thing is, it's like this, how did we get talked out of all this? How am I supposed to go to church, which is which I am told in the word to obey, to forsake not the assembling of ourselves together. I mean, that's what the word says, okay? It doesn't say we're supposed to be hiding behind closed doors, in fear. All right, because we have been infused with the Ruach HaKodesh. We have a Parsha. We should be fearless and boldness. Why are we going to go back to church? So this is the dividing line. This is really going to be, for you, your Passover test. Are you whose house rules are you gonna follow? Because if I'm gonna be an effective minister for Yeshua HaMashiach, for the Lord Jesus Christ, I need to be out amongst the people. I need to be able to pray and lay hands on people. I need to be able to speak to people. I need to be able to love and to minister to them on a personal level, like if they need food or if they need clothing. I mean, there's a lot of hands-on stuff that goes on in ministry that is straight out of our Bible, that you cannot scratch, just do away with, and expect to have a vibrant, powerful church experience. Okay? Maybe for short periods of time, for something, but this to become this is what they want, a new lifestyle. That's totally unacceptable. In my opinion, any Christian or any Jew, any religious person who believes in Yahweh Elohim, the Lord God Almighty, Hashem, the master, the creator of the universe, and can't, and is going to let the world say that you got to wear a mask in church. Talk about muzzling your mouth. I mean, part of this is we got to wake up to the level of sorcery. See, sorcery really is mind control. All right. How to put, almost like it's like they put blinders so you don't see what's going on in the bigger picture. We have to see this thing for what it is. And the groundwork for taking, okay, so that's just in the church, right? But I, for one, I'll just say publicly, I would not, any pastor seriously, people, we need leadership. We need strong men and women who will go out there and say, I am not afraid. I'm not afraid of a plague. I'm not afraid of jail. I'm not afraid. Okay? Have no fear. I don't, and look let me just say this too. Okay? Not to live in a little panacea world, a Pollyanna world. We're in a war. Yes, there is Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego when they went into the fire, so to speak. Look at what happened in their generation. It happened, Nimrod, who biblically was a Luciferian world leader who had caballed the whole world basically into a one world government system that served that the cabal, him and made all the people serve them. All right. And Abraham stood against him. All right, one man. This is a lot of the story that evangelicals don't get, because it's a lot of this is the history that's in the writings, that we're supposed to be reading. But like I said, the book of Jasher is full of this history. All right, and that's but and if you study out the Abraham, he wasn't just some little backwoods shepherd guy. He was a world. You talk about Bill Gates. He was a Bill Gates of his generation. The father made him one of the most powerful people on the planet, and he was able to stand against Nimrod, and he was able to withstand him until Nimrod's evil empire did come down. All right, and it did, and it's fascinating, the story. I mean, a lot of the mention of that east. Well, I won't even go into that. All right, but the point is. Oh dear, I did lose that point. Oh my gosh, it's got to come back to us, back to me. But with Nimrod, I was going to say, so sometimes Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, they said, look, even if you throw us in the fire, we believe that we will be saved. I mean, best case scenario, we believe that the Father will protect us. Okay, he said, but if we perish, we perish. Okay, I mean, I'm not in control. First of all, our lives are not our own; they're bought with a price. So they said, if we perish, fine. We know where we're going. But we are going to still not bow down to this false image of a god, a Nebuchadnezzar. That was Nimrod at the time. We're going to stand our ground, and we're going to serve what we know, the God that we know to be the true high God. So this is the thing, that life is going to happen. I mean. Yeah, people might go out and get COVID and it might paralyze and something bad might happen, but oh well, I just lost my husband, people. I mean, seriously, you talk about life being arbitrary and unfair and who can fathom it, right? So what am I supposed to do? I'm just going to go on. I'm going to fight the good fight. Dennis is with me. We're going to, in a way, we're just doing it at some different levels, so to speak. Oh, I would love to be know what he knows now. But anyways, but my point is, you still cannot let fear of something bad happening shut you down, because the Father's promised, even if I'll be with you, I will comfort you, I will encourage you, you'll be able to go on. Because let me tell you, when the battles that go on are so beyond it, you wouldn't want, it's a blessing. It really is a blessing that our eyes physically can only see in the physical realm. If we really could see and hear everything, we couldn't stand for a day. I'm sure we would be so freaked out. Anyways, but what I need to tell people, if you're not aware of the Kabbalah, if your eyes have never been open to the true evil darkness that is present in the world, that people are doing and still doing, and that we need to rid. Our government was established on biblical principles with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and freedom. We have a constitution, and I do not need to, and I will not submit to a cabal that is a globalist cabal that is trying to tell me how to do my church life. That is anti-constitutional, it's anti-American, and I, for one, it's just, I've been, choose you this day, I've chosen. I'm going to trust the Father, and whatever he tells me to do, I will do. And we all kind of have to, this is where we got to go, people. This is where we have to go. See, okay, just let's take about this, the media today. This is one of the things, I was talking about that movie Pandemic. I hate to be all over the place, and I'm kind of sorry, but this video got taken down. Whether you agree with the material or not, we do not have freedom of speech anymore in this country. We have 5 corporations. What we have is a propaganda machine. Our media is totally controlled. The mainstream media is totally controlled. There are 5 internationalist corporations that control all of them. Whether it's Disney or Viacom or Fox or ABC or whatever it is, they're all under 5, basically 5 larger, who are probably really all connected to each other. All right. So for discernment, we really cannot trust anymore, to a large extent, the media. We just have to learn to judge by fruit and by biblical principles. All right. And so you're being asked today to decide, how your church life, how you're going to run your personal, and I'm sorry, but I personally would not put myself, I'm sorry, under the leadership of somebody who could not take a stand at this very obvious juncture. All right. In civil disobedience is going to become needed and very real. All right. Now, there's other things that are very serious going on. This whole cashless society that just like out of nowhere, it didn't come out of nowhere. It's been being planned, and it's like platforms that were being built and built and built underneath our system, and it's just come right up. All right. And in the 5G, I know a lot of these people want to put down all conspiracy theories, but what they don't understand, listen to me carefully. One man's master plan is another man's conspiracy. It's all perception. All right. I mean, it all depends on kind of what team you're on. All right. But the fact that this whole cashless system with the 5G is here, it's a locked grid that literally is in place. People, they can, and I say they, all right, can grid you down to like 6 inches of where you are at all times. Everything, this. I know I'm preaching to the choir. Everything you eat and drink, everything you say, we're all being, even this that I'm saying. All right. So whatever yes, put me down on the side of whatever, future dissident, whatever. Okay. But I have great hope for Ephraim. I have great hope for America. It's just going to have to take we just have to rise up and be brave and be strong. And those that know they're going to have to do exploits, we're going to have to take a stand and be a visible, powerful force that with love, I'm not saying it, believe me, with wisdom, with love, with demonstrations of the Spirit's power, show that truly there is a wisdom in the way of God, and we do not have to fear what the globalists keep telling us is going to come down upon our heads. All right? Because nothing's going to happen that is out. And I'll tell you a little secret, because once we get ourselves in a position, it's going to pass over us, and it is reserved for the wicked. All of that stuff you read about that gets everybody all nervous, and it says in Revelation or all the different places it is. But if you can really see how the church, they have rendered us totally non-essential. I mean, think about that. When I look back and I'm going, I was so consumed with my own life. I had just had, I'm like, how did we get to this place where you can go to Walmart, but I can't go to church? There's something really wrong with that equation. And the church just sort of took it. Okay, so now we've had enough time to think about it. We've had enough time to kind of see where this could be going, the trajectory. And now it is time to sort of take a stand and sort of say, no, wait a minute. I have a constitution. I do have rights. I am an adult. I have a son who is auto-suppressant. I know how to accord my life with a balance of wisdom and a balance of being safe and being trying to do the right thing, so to speak, and living in total abject fear. No, I'm not going to do that. All right. And this is where it gets a little, where you're not, because this is probably a really bad thing to say, probably politically incorrect, but let me just say, just because you have no faith, or you are ruled by fear, or you think that the virus is going to jump out of you from every corner, or, doorpost, or gas nozzle, I can't help that. All right? Renew your mind. Come to the Father, and He'll give you peace. He will load you up with just an arsenal, mentally, physically, and spiritually, how to withstand those mental attacks on your mind to think like that. All right? And I'm not saying that stuff doesn't happen and there aren't germs in there, but this living in abject fear and letting them reorganize your life to such an extent, all right, that it fits right into this globalist Kabbalist agenda of trying to put us into a grid, a box, a one world government, a system. These are all things, they're very biblical. All right. I'm not saying anything. I'm not making anything up. But we have to really kind of reassess this. If you don't understand, a sorcery. Well, let me just give you this example. People wonder. This is so funny. Let me just say something too. I'm sorry. I have a YouTube channel. I have a website and I could say Facebook page. I've been at this for a little while, and I've been on a YouTube channel and trying, along with a lot of people, trying to, say a lot of this stuff and release my research and just sort of try to, but I feel very compelled to come out more, quote unquote, in public. But if you're interested in some deeper understandings or some deeper teachings, or if you want, go and just put up Liz McGee on YouTube, just look at, because I can't really touch on some of the depth of this stuff, but and I'm not the only one saying this. This is all over. This is documented. This is historical. This is where what's happening today is not anything new, or that hasn't happened. There's nothing new under the sun. But the sorceries, now I've lived long enough to know some of this phenomena. So who remembers the Cabbage Patch dolls? Remember, all of a sudden people were getting up at 3 and 4 in the morning and lining up in stores to get that had the ugliest faces on the planet, by the way, in my opinion. Cabbage Patch dolls. Remember when pet rocks became old? Everybody had to have a pet rock. Or we had Beanie Babies. That was huge. Remember the Beanie Babies? I think I have that right. There were those little animals. And, buying them, untold amounts of money people were spending on these things. Even in the Christian market, I saw this with the Prayer of Jabez, which was and a lot of the What Would Jesus Do bracelets. This is how these are sorceries on people's minds, where they are able to, I want to frequency electronic to really and truly put this kind of almost group think on people's minds who are susceptible to it, that they have to have this, that they have to do this. This is a really established sword. This is what the Bible's trying to talk about. It uses the word sorcery, and we dismiss it because we don't know what it's talking about. But I'm telling you, it's as real and modern and in your face as it's ever been. I mean, just the fact that during a snowstorm, I mean, it cracks. What is it? What do? They panic button everybody. They sort, do you got to go out and get bread and water and bread and milk, you know, and hunker down. I mean, and then what, 5 flakes come? I've lived here in New England and seen this pattern over and over. I mean, and this is how serious, and I don't want to get too deep on this, but how do you think, okay, so I was going to say, the toilet paper, that's a sorcery, people. Oh my gosh, it cracks me up. And this one is really funny. You know how people just hoarding toilet paper. Why would you hoard toilet paper? Of all the bizarre things that you could hoard during a COVID-19 virus, flu, which isn't even a flu of diarrhea. I mean, that's not one of its major manifestations. It's so funny. It's toilet paper. But this again, if there's how just to train the mind to just, they practice on as they do things, but people make a lot of money. Balaam, they didn't send, what's his name? Didn't send for Balaam to put a curse, a sorcery on Israel for no reason. Okay? There's great economic, military, social, logistical things that you can do with this level of mind control. And so you pair all this up with 5G, with a bunch of stuff, with our cashless society, with just, you know, paint the picture yourself. It doesn't take a lot to understand that we are being kind of backed into a corner on some of this stuff. Now, aside from and then in the economy, you know, this whole thing with crashing this economy, you have to, people, I'm sorry, but we're being told repeatedly, this is a sorcery. You cannot turn the news on, Facebook, anything, and you don't see COVID-19 in your face. What should you do? Where it's at, the death toll. They are trying to surround your mind, your vision. See, because these are called our gates, our mouth, our eyes, our nose, everything with COVID, fear, and it's this bad, and it's going to get this bad. And they are trying to train you to think in a certain way down a certain avenue for certain results. All right? And when you study deeper the levels of power and the levels of wickedness and things that these people will unleash upon, it's called the poor, the innocent, the harmless. Those people just want to live their life. All right? I just want, all right? This idea that you're just a puppet, you know, and is very real. So what I'm trying to say is, we need to look at this thing, this COVID thing, from a whole different lens. All right? Yes, if people get sick, we have hospitals, we do have things and treatments for people. But, you know, there's a lot of other factors in this thing. And we could just protect our elderly, our at-risk population. We could do a bang-up job on just trying to put boundaries around individuals or places like the elderly that are at high risk. You do not have to shut down a whole economy. You do not have to shut down whole counties that do not have anything near to be alarmed about. Look, if you're not going to shut it down over, listen, they're still having abortions today, and I don't see anybody getting, that's somehow an essential. People, you can, in another way with science, we're being told today, totally, you have to trust science. Science will be the answer. I've heard, when are people going to trust it? Well, this is the same science community that has had trillions of dollars to cure cancer. Where'd that get us? I'm sorry. Why should I just, and anybody who has studied diet, health, the pharmaceutical industry, and the food we're eating, and all this stuff, why would I put my trust in, quote unquote, this science that isn't getting results? Okay, come on, people, seriously, on the level that should, you know, if we've spent that many billions of dollars on cancer and we've gotten this much result, and it's still rampant, and it's going into younger and younger and younger, there's really something wrong with this equation, all right? Now, I am not picking on any single person, like a nurse or a doctor or somebody who is called to the health profession. That is a high and holy calling. Let me tell you, people who can work with blood, I'm like, oh my gosh, I pass out and faint, right? It's very easy for me to talk about it on that high allegorical level. But if I had to deal with it in the room, see, it's a praise report that we're all made different. We have all different things that we can contribute into. So I'm not talking about that. But I am talking about the fact that there's a sorcery going on right now over our minds on how to see this thing. And I'm telling you right now, it's perpetrated by a very wicked cabal who is, in my opinion, they are totally trying to implement and take down our freedoms. And I, for one, I mean, what else am I going to do? I'm elderly. I'm a widow. I don't have a lot. I'm going to fight it. What am I, going to just bake cookies all day? I don't think that's really going to do much at this point. So, I'm just looking. There's just a point in the sand. Well, you got to draw a line in the sand. And I guess I just wanted to share that today. And we'll see where this goes. And I would just encourage everyone that we don't need to have fear. We don't need to be confused. We do not need to let godless, truly, people with a godless worldview who do not have any faith dictate how the rest of us who do have faith live. In a pluralistic society, I have rights, I have a constitution, and I have a governmental system that ensures me of this. And so, hey, who wants to meet up for a prayer group in our area out there and pray for our towns, pray for our municipalities, pray for the fact that we can have a blood care. We can believe that to protect the people in our land, our children, our elderly, those saints that's our responsibility, and that's our job before the Father. And I, for one, I'm not going to keep doing it over Zoom. So on that note, everybody have a great Shabbat tomorrow. I encourage people back with a Sabbath sharing. So I do love you, and I do hope I'm going to see more people soon, because I do miss my Cornerstone family. So on that note, shalom, shalom.